The beginning of my book starts with me getting my moving truck stolen full of everything I own. So my heart does break for them because I've had that feeling of losing everything. I had the outfit on my back, and then I decided to move where Jay was, and then I met him, and a few months later we were gone. So it changes your whole life. It's your identity too, not just materialist things.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. It's early morning in Cyprus and late evening in Southern California. And I'm going to talk to this lady who is a kindred spirit, I think, because she's a traveler. She's got a book that I want to talk about. And she sounds like a very happy person. Without saying any more, welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Pamdiana Jones. Pamdiana is an interesting name.
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, it's my author pen name. I knew I would reach out to my adventure readers from the spoof of the movie Indiana Jones. So as my travels took me all over the world, I felt like Indiana Jones. So I would sign my letters home as Pamdiana Jones. And once email, this was years ago in the 1990s, so there was no email or anything yet. So once I got my first email addresses and my first social medias, I just stuck with that Pamdiana Jones reference because it was so me.
Well, I think it's very appropriate because you are a little bit of a Indiana, but Pamdiana with all you've done. So I went through the description of your book before I came online. And what I liked was that you were planning to go away for 3 months or something, and then you ended up going for years. Tell me about that. What happened?
Sure. Let me back up a little bit. My grandparents are British, but they lived in Egypt and South Africa for 10 years. And then they moved to California. And my mother had gone to Tanzania and Kenya in the 70s. And I just knew I would have traveler blood in my blood. So I was 24, I had never been anywhere, and I had moved to a ski resort town and met this nice young man. We were not dating. I said, what are you going to do when the snow melts? He goes, I'm going surfing in South Africa. And my face just lit up. That sounds amazing. He said, you want to go? He just threw it out there like it was nothing. He told me later that most people say they want to go and then have all these excuses why they can't go. Well, I emptied out my bank account and handed it to him, and I bought the ticket that day, and 30 days later we left. So it's supposed to be 3 months with him in South Africa. Well, halfway through the journey, his sister decides to get married quickly, and he doesn't want to miss out. So he goes home, and I feel like I've made some friends in South Africa, and I just would like to finish the journey. And he taught me to travel so cheaply. We bought a car there. He taught me to eat white rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And I'm a foodie, so that was the hardest thing ever. But he said it's $2 for a bag of rice last you for a whole week instead of $5, $10 every meal that we might sit at a cafe and run out of money quickly. So by the time I had the last day of South Africa, I got onto the flight heading home to Los Angeles, and it stopped in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I only left with $3,300, and I'd only spent $900 with him, or the whole trip. So I still had $2,400. And I asked the stewardess on the flight, I go, can I get off the plane in Kuala Lumpur? And she said, yes, your ticket's good for a year. So I got off. I called my mom. I'm not coming home just yet. And I'm in Malaysia. And she wished me well because she's an adventurous woman as well. And I went all the way through Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, all through Sumatra, Java, Bali, and Lombok. And then I thought I'd only spend another $1,000 in 4 months. So then I thought Australia and New Zealand are right there. And then I started working along the way and picking up odd jobs. So it just turned into 3 years overseas.
How amazing. That brings me back to my 20s because that's the kind of people I knew. When I was even younger than that, I was working in a ski lodge. I was clearing tables in a ski lodge, and we had all these Americans who had come from the US to work in Switzerland. I'm from Switzerland originally. And I used to admire them, how they were, like you said, I'm going to South Africa. You want to come? and that
hadn't occurred to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did at the time, isn't it? People become, as we get older, we become more complicated.
Yeah. It's tougher to meet friends, but when you meet, like Elizabeth, I'm so happy to meet you, and we have so much in common from our 20s and travels. It sounds like a lifetime of adventure. So I'm so happy to meet you here on this podcast.
So let's start a little. I want to go through that trip. You were in
Sure,
South
please.
Africa. South Africa, I've been to South Africa, but then it must have been very different. Did you feel safe? Did you ever have any problems?
Oh, several, and they were my fault. So I call my book a comedy travel memoir, but it's very dark humor because I can't believe the things I got myself into. Jay and I landed in Johannesburg, took a 25-hour train ride to Cape Town. Well, we got on third class trying to save money. There was no first class or second class seats available anyway. So we just thought, let's jump on. We're from LA. We have lots of Black friends. It's going to be great. And it was not great. It was completely dangerous. And at one point, I go to use the facilities up in the dining car, and I meet two white South Africans that insist that me and Jay come and have dinner with them. And once they realize that we don't know what we're doing, they go, no, 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 no. The security guard will lock you in there, and that's when all hell breaks loose. He'll lock you in at night and goes to bed. So he insisted that his workers went to take our spot, and we got to sleep in their cabin with them, leaving the workers in the third class. And I'd never met the workers. I don't know. And I just think, wow, that sounds scary. He goes, every night someone gets stabbed, every single night. So we're scared to death. We don't think about it. Well, the next morning, we meet the workers, and they have the most horrendous story. That's all of our fault. This little worker is about 5'4", and he says about a 6'5" man, Black man, came up to him and put a knife to his throat. And this man, I don't mean to be insensitive, but this is what they called them in the 90s. The workers were called colored people. They were more Malay. They weren't, they were more dark skinned, but with straight hair. So I'm not quite sure where their ethnic background is from, but this little man had to make the big man turn the knife around and stab himself. And the big man went crawling away back to his friends and family with blood everywhere on the train. And the two workers had to stand back to back with knives out the rest of the night, just in total fear. And this is page 1 of my book, and I'm so selfish. I'm just thinking, but my feet are cold, and I didn't get a blanket. So I'm very naive and selfish when I first begin the travels, and that just smacks me in the face that, we took third class to have an adventure, and this is a whole new world where we better pay attention. So it opened my eyes.
Wow.
That's
That
page 1. So
that is, I mean, South Africa in the 90s was a very different country. There was segregation. Those people, the
yeah.
workers, were slaves in a
Mhm.
way, weren't they? I mean, it's
Yeah,
another word.
exactly. It was the 1-year anniversary of Nelson Mandela getting voted in. And this is a complex history. They had seen commercials on TV that said, if you are a chauffeur for a white family or a maid for a white family, now that Nelson Mandela is in, you get the house and you get the limousine. And then when that didn't happen, there was
Bad blood.
animosity still. Yeah, people didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody was suspicious of each other a bit, but I didn't know that. My poor guardian angel was exhausted from keeping me out of trouble, I'll tell you that.
I feel exactly the same. I was a tour guide in the 80s, and I was stupid and naive. And I have so many things like you. And I was so lucky. We were so lucky. We have to, I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure that guardian angel from then it's not possible that the guardian angel still lives, because must
Woo.
have had a heart attack by now.
I just have this dumb optimistic, hey, you want to hitchhike with this person? Sure, it's going to be great. Hey, we've never met before, but if you want to save a few bucks, you can sleep on my couch. No problem. Sounds good. Oh boy, how am I still alive? Rest of the book continues on of just me being dumb. I'm climbing a volcano in Indonesia, and it's a live volcano, and I don't know this. So I fall asleep at the top, and then I learn it has just killed 50 people 2 weeks before, and it will kill again every few weeks. It kills somebody. And I'm like, I would have never climbed this volcano if I had known that. Then later, the cover of the book, I am on top of a bungee jump platform. And I've just told my friend, I don't want to go. This is not for me. And he says, okay, I fully understand. And then he shoves me off of the platform. So I'm not normal bungee jump fearful. I'm bungee jump fearful. Did you even clip me in right? Fearful. So, because I told you I wasn't going, and you went, okay, and you jumped up so quickly. Did you buckle my feet in at all? At all? So I'm just terrified. And it doesn't stop there. I'm scuba diving in Australia with a big gash out of my hand, and blood is trailing through, and a shark is following me the whole time. And I don't know to get out of the water. That's not very bright, I assume. But the to be a memoir writer, you have to write what really happened, not what you wish happened. So some of these things I was going to leave out, but I thought, no, this is, I want to read this when I'm old and remember it with delight instead of what I wish had happened,
Yeah, well, that's one thing. And the other thing is you can help somebody. Your story can be somebody else's survival guide. And in
Right?
this case, definitely.
Mine's what not to do. So,
Yeah. Tell me, where was the bungee jumping? In which country?
New Zealand.
Because I was in New Zealand in 1987 or
Really?
89 in Queenstown, and that was where they started bungee jumping ever in
Isn't
off
that
a bridge.
beautiful? Isn't that the quaintest little town ever? I loved it there. I
Yes.
my bungee jumping was in Lake Taupo in the North Island, but I did end up living in Queenstown as well in my book.
So yeah, we were there around about the same time. Amazing, amazing. So then you also said that you worked. How did you worked in Australia or in New Zealand when you
Yeah.
started running out of money? What did you do?
I washed airplanes for a few days. I didn't know that they got dirty, but I guess that was needing to be done. I taught snorkeling lessons at the Great Barrier Reef, which is still a dream job that I'm so lucky I ever got that. Some hostel work where you pick people up at the bus stop and sign them into the hostels, and a lot of waitressing and bartending. That was I had a tax ID number for the country, and that was easier to get because people come and go. As they're moving on in their towns as well.
You had a tax ID number, but working there was illegal, wasn't it?
Hypothetically, wink, wink.
No,
I
no.
think, well, I didn't have the proper paperwork. I did get the tax ID number because all my friends had told me it will be easier to get a job if I show I'm paying taxes to the country.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
yes, there was a moment in my book, actually, with the teaching snorkeling lessons. My boat captain called me one day and he goes, "You can't come in today." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "You can't come back ever." I go, What happened?" He goes, "Immigration is in town and they are chasing out everybody and they will record you. If they see you, you'll go to jail and the whole thing." And I just went, I didn't realize it was such a big deal. Again, my naivety.
Well, that happened to, even us. We were employed by a Swiss company, but there were countries where you couldn't get a work permit. So we were there illegally. And then we stayed for as long as we were allowed. And then we went out for a couple of days and came back.
Yeah, that's how I ended up in New Zealand. I thought I love Australia so much. I'll just go over there for 2 weeks and explore. It's about the size of California. I'll just, check it out. But I loved it there too and ended up staying a year and then came back to Australia for another year. So a lot of that whole trip is on that side of the world down under. Just fell in love with it there.
So what do you think? Do you travel today? Are you traveling these days? You're a mom of two 14-year-old twins. Do you travel
Right.
as a family?
We do, but 4 tickets is much more expensive than 1 ticket. I ended up marrying a high school sweetheart. We'd had just a few dates, and he joined the army and he left, and then I went traveling and he married someone else. And finally, in my 30s, my sister called me and said, "Guess who's single?" And I said, "No way!" And he helped me move in, and he never left. So we've been together 20 years now, 21 years. The first gift I gave him was tickets to Costa Rica, and he just fell in love with it. He goes, "We can go somewhere new every year that we've never been." I went, "This is my person. I feel the same way." But once we became a family with children, we thought we can afford tickets for everybody every 3 years. So my children have been to Hawaii when they were 1.5, and then they've been to Australia when they were 5. Then they went to Bali and Hong Kong right before the pandemic when they were 8, almost 9. And then we had a little blip in our lives here. Right as soon as I published the book, my husband got some health issues. He struggled with throat cancer, and man, that guy is a survivor. And we thought, let's celebrate with a trip to Europe. I had never been much through Europe. I'd been to England. I have cousins there, but my sister had done the Eurail Trail. But this time, just over this last summer, we went to London. We went through Rome up to Cinque Terre. We went over to the French Riviera and Monaco. And then we flew over to Venice. We rented a car and went up to the Dolomites, down to Tuscany, down to Lecce, down in the heel of the boot. And then we ended the Italian trip with the Arch of the Boot, is an ancient city called Matera. And then we drove up to Rome, hit the Vatican City, and then we flew home via Norway. So we got a couple days in Norway there. So 6 countries and a little summer trip there. So that was epic. And I'm so glad that we were able to do it. But it's also going to be in another book because weird things always happen to me. Right before we left, my dog smacked into another dog. So 200 pounds fell into my knee right before we left. So I'm in a wheelchair at the Coliseum and I'm on crutches in Venice in the heat of the summer and I get laryngitis. So I cannot even say, excuse me to people that are smacking into me in these huge crowds while I'm walking around with crutches. So definitely enough of hilariousness for another book in the future with the family travels too.
Oh my God. So I was thinking when you said four tickets are more than one, that's one
Mm.
thing. And also, I'm sure those other three were not willing to eat white rice three times a day.
Right. So that's over with. Still to this day, I hate white rice. I can't eat it.
That is so fascinating, but it's so interesting how life was different. And you said you went to Australia one of the trips with the kids. How
Yeah.
was that was like what, 20 years later?
Yes,
How was
exactly.
it? How
And
was it different?
oh, wow. I was looking for tickets and I thought, let me take them somewhere I know because they're young and I just want to be sure that we're safe. I can't think of everything in the world is poisonous in Australia, so I don't think of that. But I'm looking at tickets through Sydney and through Cairns and everything is almost $2,000. And then I checked one more time at Brisbane and it's $400 round trip. And I just went, we're grabbing it. And we have a timeshare now. And I called the timeshare, do you have anything in Australia? They said, yes, 4 days in Surfers Paradise, where I used to live, so I could see all my old friends, and 10 days up in Port Douglas, which is where that's where Australians go to their holiday. Like we in America might go to Maui, or you might go to, Sicily or Corsica or something like this, the Canaries. I slept in one day and my husband, I told him on the flight, do not touch anything. Everything is absolutely poisonous because I remembered that right when we were leaving. Nobody believed me. My husband, one day when I was sleeping and he reaches for a frog. Thank God the groundskeeper was right there. He goes, oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you. You'll be dead in 30 seconds. So, like, don't touch anything really means don't touch anything. But they got to feed kangaroos and hold koala bears and just the time of our lives swimming and beach and snorkeling. We saw a shark with my kids, and I'm the adventure mom that still doesn't get it. We see a shark, we're in the water, and I shove my kids' heads underwater. I go, look, a shark! Not, oh my God, get out of the water. I go, look, check it out. So I don't know what I'm doing.
I like
They think
that.
I'm
I like
they
that.
think I'm crazy.
What kind of travelers are your kids? What are they like? Because I had one, I'm a traveler. I was a tour guide. I traveled so much. I wanted to make sure that my kids like to travel. Do yours?
Absolutely. When they took that trip to Hawaii, it's about a 5 hour flight for us. But at 1.5, they had never spent the night anywhere but our house. And they were still in the rear facing car seats. So the minute we landed, we had new car seats facing forward, and then they slept in new places and they didn't even whine a bit. And at one point, we hired an older gal that the hotel recommended for an adult night out. And I just introduced the kids. I go, this is my friend Susie. She's going to stay with you for a little while. They went, okay. And my son learned to run on the meadow in Hawaii right before our room in the pool. So there was a little bit of running around Toddlerville, and they just loved it. And funny thing is, for us, Australia and Bali are 22-hour flights. And at one point, after all that, we flew to grandma's house in Oregon for an hour and a half flight. And my son and daughter just went, that's it? Hour and a half? And my son goes, I prefer the longer flights where you can really settle in.
Sounds like
I,
my kind of guy.
I go, you're the only person on the planet that wants a 22-hour flight, by the way. My daughter, we just said, where would you like to go? And we were talking about Italy, but she said, how about India? And I've been to India before and have friends there. And we thought about it, but me and my husband are in our 50s now, where we're like, I don't want a 29-hour flight just yet. Let's just do the 11, 12-hour flight to Italy. And that worked out perfect. But I love that wasn't off the table when she heard it was a 29-hour flight. She went, so? So
Yeah.
I think they're pretty good. They love new foods and trying new things. And some of, traveling, sometimes you're very uncomfortable. It's too hot, or you've been up since, 28 hours, 35 hours. And my kids just go, what are we eating? Where are we going? So I'm so blessed in that way.
Yeah, but that's taught, you see, that you lived that. So they saw that. So that's how they grew up. I think it has a lot to do with that. I believe that, our kids are born, I always say they're born with an empty hard disk. Whatever all the habits that they have, all the values that they have is from us or from the people who bring them up.
Yeah. What they're surrounded with. I love that thought.
Yeah.
That's, I'm so lucky. They are very open to new cultures. They want to learn how to say hello and thank you in every language. And they want to try the real local food and see the local waterfall, not just the Disneyland everywhere we go. So I'm happy for that.
Tell me, apart from the train in South Africa where you nearly got stabbed,
Yeah.
what else, from the previous trip, from the first trip when you were young, do you have any other adventures, any other things that happened to you that
Oh,
you're a little naive?
yeah. I jumped out of the car in the middle of the elephant training or the elephant park. So me and Jay, my friend that was still with me, we decided to follow this herd of wild elephants. And at one point, as we were turning back towards our car, the ground just starts rumbling. And we're from California. We think this is an earthquake. We don't understand. No, they're chasing us now. They're not chasing us, but they're chasing one and it's coming in our direction. So we have to run and jump over bushes. There's no big boulders or trees anywhere. We have to just run and jump and hope for the best. And that last few steps, they veered left, right when we veered right. And we are just covered in dust and almost getting trampled on while you're out in the elephant park. That doesn't happen to everybody.
Oh my God.
Just, and you explore more sides of yourself as well. So at one point after Jay leaves, I meet three other fellas that want to go to another animal park. This one has lions and all the big five, and they want to buy some marijuana first. So we end up. I feel a little nervous. Like I just met them yesterday. Are they going to protect me if there's a problem, or we'll see what happens? But they end up shaking a little bag of seeds at a Zulu fella, and he gets in our car and he starts pointing which way to go. For 2 hours, we're driving up this huge hill and we have to keep getting out of the car to push the car over the boulders. And we come up and there is a Zulu couple wearing like grass skirts and white clay on their torsos. The woman is topless and she's carrying a big pot of water on her head. And they just put up their hands like, stop, you can't be on our land. But they're speaking their language. So it's just the body language that I'm reading. Like, stop, you can't be here. And then they see their friend in the car and they go, oh, hey, what are you doing here? They lighten up and they go, what's going on? So he explains what we want and they say good luck to us. And we come up to maybe 15 different grass huts with goats and dogs and stray cats running everywhere. And we come up and everybody comes out of their hut. What are these people doing in our village? So they hear my friend shakes the bag of seeds again and out comes Big Mama. She brings out a big old barrel of pot, and I'm not a big pot smoker. I tried it once or twice, and she just has a full barrel, and she digs in both arms. And my friend looks at me and goes, I'm going to bargain with her. And she digs in both arms and goes, $6. He goes, okay. And off we go. They invite us for dinner, but my friends are so excited about the pot that I'm embarrassed that we didn't stay for dinner. That's what we're really trying to be doing there, is getting to know the culture. But that night we stay inside the animal park in a treehouse. Well, now I decide I'm going to get high as well because I meet new friends. This is such an adventure. It's about 2:00 in the morning, and one of the friends goes, let's take a walk. I go, okay, this sounds fabulous. So we're out there, we're just cracking jokes, we're having a beer now and then, and all of a sudden we've gone about 1.5 miles, and we hear a loud stick break, and it hits all of us at the same moment. Oh, we're inside the animal park that has the lions and the rhinos and the hippos and what are we doing? So I have a little tiny flashlight and I shine it in a circle, and all we see is thousands of eyeballs staring at us, different heights, different sizes. Oh my God. So we just go running back to the house like our feet are on fire, and we hear some lions roar right after that. We're like, thank God that's not for us. Like, woo, we're some dummies. That was not very bright. So exactly, my book is what not to do when you go to Africa.
You were
or any of
very
the other
lucky,
countries.
so very lucky. The book is called When in Rome, but not Rome as in Rome, when in Rome, like roaming, Roam.
Right. That's
Because
it. That's
you
for
were
roaming
roaming
around.
around.
Exactly right. It's that title came to me. I was about halfway through the book and I just thought, let me make a page everything travel. So I just wrote passport, tropical, scuba diving, anything that thought about travels. And all of a sudden, roaming came to me. And then I had said, when in Rome, as the saying up on a farther bit of the page, but ROME. And then I went, oh, and it came to me. So I couldn't believe it wasn't already taken, and just proud of
It's
that.
brilliant. It's really, really
Thank you.
good. So,
Thank you.
what's next? I mean, you are now, your kids are going to grow up. They are going to go to college, and then you will be free again. Are you going to travel?
Absolutely. There's so much
What's
to
on the
see.
menu?
Gosh, my daughter has an Egyptian middle name, so Egypt is high on the list there. Turkey is just calling to me, so I've never been to the Middle East in any way, so I think that will be exciting. But my kids are so funny because when I said, "What did you think of our European vacation?" When there was a lot of museums and walking and the architecture and all this stuff, they go, "We loved it. We loved Europe, but Bali." So I went, yeah, I'm more jungle and whitewater rafty and staying in a hut, that kind of traveling a little bit more me. So I think that side of the world calls me a bit more, but I'd love to see Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos and, Tibet and things like that, I think too. Nepal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think European cities can be a little boring for kids and even for us after a while, when you go, I mean, when you go to one town and then you feel like, oh my God, I've seen that in another town already. I've heard this history in another town already. So it can get tiring, but of course they will learn to appreciate it when they're older.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad they say they're glad they went now, but if they want to be called to somewhere new, it would be another jungle place, I think. So I've been to South America and all jungle does call me in different ways, but I love mixing it up. I mean, Italy just for the food. Wow. The history in America, everything's 200 years old. And at one point, I don't know if you remember the earthquake in 1994 in Los Angeles.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that was in a town called Northridge. So that hit my hometown. And I called my British friend and she goes, how's your house? I go, my house is fine. Some of the newer houses fell down, but my house was older, so it stayed standing. She goes, well, how old is your house? I go, 30 years old. And she laughed and she laughed and she laughed. And she said, my nightclub is 1,800 years old. My hairdresser over here, she's 1,500 years old house. So what I thought was older was hilariously new to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, of
Um,
course, different. It's a matter of perception. Tell me, you are in Southern California. How are you were saying before we started recording, you are away from the fires, but did you get near the fires or did you see anything? It was horrible.
they're still burning. So today is the first day of rain, and all of Southern California is just breathing a bit of sigh of relief. It's unfortunate because there's a huge wind that blows through called the Santa Ana winds, named after a town of Santa Ana. And that's usually in October, September and October. So it's never been in January before. And all of a sudden, there's mad arsonists running around starting fires because they love that the Santa Anas are blowing. So I'm in this little pocket called Laguna Beach area, and all of LA is burning, all of inland around me is burning, and then San Diego south of me is burning. So we just seem to be in this little pocket, but someone tried to start a fire right behind my house and it got put out immediately. So I think the news is telling of the big fires, but there's thousands of little ones that are being put out immediately by these brave, brave firemen. So, and everybody's kind of on alert. Like, what are you doing over there? What's that? Why are you in the bushes? So everybody's on doing their due diligence to get this over with. But as soon as the Santa Anas die down, these fires will be put out immediately. So it's been a trying time. My friends and family are fine. We've had some friends evacuate, and a few of my husband's coworkers have lost absolutely everything. Their home has been burnt to the ground. So that's something they were going to have to navigate through as a family at this tragedy. I hope they can find a way, because while we've been talking about fun things, the beginning of my book starts with me getting my moving truck stolen full of everything I own. So my heart does break for them, because I've had that feeling of losing everything. I had the outfit on my back, and then I decided to move where Jay was, and then I met him, and a few months later we were gone. So it changes your whole life. It's your identity too, not just materialist things, but that little teddy bear you had since you were little, or the old note that your grandma wrote you. Those little things are gone, way more important than any of the furniture or things. But to
Yeah,
lose it
I
all
agree.
for me turned into the greatest freedom of my life. So I hope they can come to that acceptance at some point,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, let's hope that it rains, that the rain continues, that it rains,
Yes.
because that definitely helps. One
Yes.
last thing before we get to the end. You were there, you were like your adventures were in the 90s. Mine were in the
Hmm.
80s. We had
Hmm.
no phone. Don't you sometimes miss that you could have taken a few pictures in certain places?
Oh, absolutely. Well, mine was still a film loaded camera. And I have a moment in my book where I'm trying to take a picture of a rhinoceros. And for anybody that doesn't know film loaded camera, the minute it got to the end, it would naturally rewind. Well, I take a picture of this rhino and he turns towards me and he kind of does a matador's hoof, like he's angry with me. And my camera decides at that moment to do a loud rewind, like it's a landing jet right in the middle of my friend's lunch there. So he started to chase me, and I had to dive headfirst into the back seat of the car, and my jeans ripped open as my friends sped away. So um, definitely don't get out of the car when you're in Africa. Try not to do that. Um,
Amazing.
well, thank you so much for having me on. I did want to mention that I've just published my second book as well. It's called The Secret of Oak Island, and it's
Yeah,
by my
I saw that.
grandfather.
What is that about? Let's, before we have a little time, talk
Do we
about
have a moment?
that.
Yeah. My
Yes.
grandfather was, like I said, they were British, but lived in Egypt. When he was 14, he joined the Navy for the British Navy, and then he went on to help in the beginning of aviation in the early 20s. So he would map out Middle East places where airplanes were supposed to land. And he's made this little book about the real treasure of Oak Island outside of Nova Scotia that's still never been solved. There's a 10-year-long TV show about how these people can't get to this treasure because ocean water rushes in. Well, I went up to the attic a year and a half ago and I found this manuscript that he had written, and it's never been published. And it's starring my triplet mother. She's a natural triplet. It stars her at 13 years old, running around trying to find this treasure. Like if you remember the movie The Goonies or National Treasure, or there's a TV show now called Outer Banks where it's just a real down home, wholesome treasure hunt for kids and teens and people who would like a little 1963 in their life again. There's a few golly gee willikers in there just for those old times, but just a good, fun down home treasure hunt.
Is that book out? Is it published or not yet?
Yes, yeah, they're both. When in Rome and The Secret of Oak Island are both available on Amazon
Okay.
and Kindle Unlimited for ebook readers as well. So
We'll
anywhere in the world.
we'll put the links in the show notes. So if somebody wants to,
Wonderful.
or somebody wants to get in touch, we found each other on Facebook because
Yes,
I was
we
looking
sure
for
did.
people for this. I think, people may say whatever they want about social media, but it has a lot of good sides.
I think so too. I made so many friends like yourself. I'm currently writing my second comedy travel memoir about a lot of the friends you meet in the first book. I'm going to meet them in their home countries. So, and one friend invites me to the South Pacific. So we go to Easter Island and Tahiti and Moorea and Samoa, but it's also the Canary Islands and back to Australia, New Zealand and things. And then I think there's a third book in me if I can ever find the time with me and my husband, Dan, and the children and our travels, because so many funny
Definitely.
things happen.
And
There's
if you
always
go
something
to,
interesting.
you mentioned Turkey. If you go to Turkey, Cyprus is very near. We are in
Yes,
the Mediterranean,
yes.
so come visit.
Wonderful. I would love that. I had some friends that lived there for years. They were the skydiving company they lived there, but they're Dutch. So I think they went home to Holland now, but
Interesting.
they lived there for
Interesting.
years. So I know right where Cyprus is. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Pamdiana Jones.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Miss Elizabeth. I look forward to staying in touch and hearing about your adventures soon one day too.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.